Oh boy. Okay. Oh, we're going live. So we're broadcasting from El Paso, Texas tonight. And like I said, I already said we're going live now, and we're going to talk Texas politics with JoAnn Fleming, and we're going to touch on a number of things, mainly the media and their just continual, I guess, slanderous nature. And yeah, that'll basically be about it. All this on this episode of Trent Chat.
From the highways of America, here's the podcast where we talk politics, a little entertainment, some culture, and this and that, from the road to your ears. This is Trent Chat with your host, Brian Bledsoe.
And welcome to another episode of Trent Chat. I am your host, Brian Bledsoe. And if you want to connect with us, whether on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Snapchat, it's all the same name, Trent Chat 24/7. Like I said, we are broadcasting live from El Paso, Texas tonight. So there's a number of reasons why I'm going live. One, it makes it a lot easier for me to do it live, because that means, I guess the people, if you listen to other episodes, you don't know, because yeah, I tend to have a lot of takes, especially at the beginning. So whenever I do those intros, 9 times out of 10, I've probably done it maybe 5 or 6 times. I feel like I don't get something right, and I always just start over. Anyway, live makes it a lot easier for me because I could just say it and it's already out there. We said it. Let's keep going. So, and also a little paranoid because, as I said, we are out here in El Paso, and and even though I am in, I guess you can call El Paso, I'm literally I feel like in the middle of nowhere. So not only am I broadcasting from El Paso, but I'm like out there. So just in case, I'm not saying anything bad's going to happen, but I'm just saying, let me just go ahead and get this out of the way. I don't have to record it, then do all this. And so I can get on the road in the morning. So I can go to bed basically. But I did want to get on, and there are a number of things that has happened since the last episode. But before we get into that, as I mentioned in the last episode, we actually have a couple of partners, and I still don't know how I'm going to do this as far as talking about our partners, whether it's ODG Apparel or 1776 United. I guess one thing I'm thinking about doing is that I am thinking of, whenever I bring up one of these, that I'm going to mention, I guess, one particular product, and just kind of focus on one every time I bring it up. Mainly just so I don't have to, I guess, keep saying the same thing. Kind of like a formulaic, like ad type. I can just make it a little different every time. I'll be talking about something different. I'm thinking about doing that. I'm not going to do that now. But right now, I guess I'll mention ODG Apparel right now. And so if you don't know, we have partnered with ODG Apparel, and they make great, Christian apparel. It's, as you can hear, it's in the name. And I don't know if maybe you've seen on social media, I've had a couple posts with one of their hats, and I have a couple of their shirts now, and I'll be posting more of that in the future. But if you want to check out, their shirts, their hats, all different types of accessories, you can go to odgapparel.com/trendchat. And on top of that, if you like what you see, which I'm pretty sure you will, if you enter the code TrendChat10 in the code box there at checkout, you get 10% off. So, hey, that's just for you. Just for you. Just for listening to this podcast, you get 10% off. Look at that. And I'm pretty sure you're going to like what you see there because they have very hip, hip fashion on Christian, Christian apparel, I would say, because yeah, I like their style. I like how they do things and how they make the shirts and then how they design everything. So yeah, odgapparel.com/TrendChat. Check them out. So one thing I'm gonna touch on this on the whole New York abortion thing. But before I get into that, there have been a lot of stories in the past couple of days. One has been because of the media and how they're just so out to get conservatives at any chance they get. And we had a number of, and not just conservatives, whether you are anything remotely Republican, like it's very obvious you don't have to be a conservative and be a Republican. We've seen that there are a number of Republicans who are not would not consider themselves being conservative. So, but just being a Republican basically makes you a target for the media. Oh, well, unless you just, bend over backwards and just agree with them, but at the same time call yourself a Republican. You can do that, but that really means nothing. But anyway, I just want to because I know by now you've heard all the different stories about this, so I'm not even going to get into each one of these stories and try to give some sort of analysis on all of it. But the one thing that just, I guess, that I would string this all together is that, too many people, really, I really mean like really too many people kind of believe this whole notion that the news media, whether it's NBC, ABC, CNN, etc., or take your pick, mainstream media, they really have bought into this notion that there's some sort of objective, nonpartisan entity. And that is so much not the case. But so many people still believe that. Mainly because they just don't see the other side, for one. But we have seen over years, I'll probably say decades, actually, but especially since the 2000s, I guess, starting from there. If you want to start there, you can even go further back from there. But you've seen case after case after case out of biased, negative reporting of anything Republican. Not only just being conservative, not only being whether Christian or anything, just anything that goes against the progressive agenda, quote unquote progressive agenda, because it's not anything but progressive. And on the other side, you see just as much bias, overly positive reporting of Democrats. And like I said, we've seen case after case, not only over the past couple of years, just these past couple of days, whether it's BuzzFeed and how their false reports on Friday and how the media covered the Covington Catholic kids, or how they not covered the March for Life. Just those three stories in the past couple of days. But that is on top of a litany of different examples that you can think of that clearly shows the media bias that continues to exist. And one reason why it continues to exist is that too many people have bought into the notion that not only ABC, NBC, and CBS and all of them they are considered to be objective, which they're not. Not only that, but also the New York Times, Washington Post, print media, and all that. They're all pretty much on the same side. They take every chance they can get to try to basically belittle, demean, try to do anything they can to make conservatives, Republicans to look as evil as possible, basically. So I'm not even going to get in, like I said, I wasn't going to get into all the stories of it. And so I just wanted to leave it at that. So with that being said, I just want to get that out there. And like I said, we're going to get to our interview with JoAnn Fleming in a second. So, but before that, let's hear a word from our friends with the Founder Project.
Hello to fans of Trend Chat and Brian Bledsoe. The Founding Project, an education nonprofit dedicated to civics, invites you to visit our brand new website. Visit us at thefoundingproject.com. Be a part of the civics movement with The Founding Project. The Founding Project is a 501c3 education nonprofit. Please join us today.
This is Trend Chat.
Yep. So, you know what? We're going to go ahead and go right into our interview with JoAnn Fleming. And like I said, we're just gonna go ahead and get into it now. I'll talk about the whole abortion law up in New York afterwards. So, without further ado, here's our interview. And we are very pleased to have JoAnn Fleming with us. She is an outstanding conservative activist and executive director at Grassroots America. How you doing, JoAnn?
I'm doing great, Brian. Great to be with you this afternoon.
So, for people who are, I guess, the uninitiated that don't know about Grassroots America, I guess give them a little information about that.
Okay, well, great. Well, first of all, I'd like to tell them to learn more on if they go to our website, which is it's Grassroots America, We the People, and it is GAWTP.com. If you just Google our being, Grassroots America, We the People, it comes right up. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at AGAWTP. Grassroots America is the largest all-volunteer-led constitutional conservative organization in Texas. What makes us different is, again, we're all volunteer-led. We don't have any paid. I'm an unpaid executive director, which doesn't make me any better than anybody else, Brian. It just makes me very determined. I've been a conservative activist in Texas for 27 years, and Grassroots America is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. So we are, as I said, constitutional conservatives. We believe in limited government. We believe in applying the first principles, which are the foundation of American freedom and liberty, to every legislative bill, every congressional bill, and all public policy to make sure that we are restraining government and we are advancing the cause of liberty.
All right. One of the first questions I wanted to ask is, with the recent midterms last year, conservatives saw a lot of good members in the Texas House and Senate lose their bid for re-election. I wanted to ask you, what did you take away from that, and what do you think we should do moving forward?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer given the work that I'm doing with some other groups on election fraud. So I will just tell you this, that I am not totally convinced in every case that every one of those races was actually lost due to anything other than voter fraud. And because we're getting some things together for hopefully for some investigations. I can't really get into that, but I think you are well aware, and probably your listeners are aware of the work that Direct Action Texas has done in mail ballot fraud. And then we have another subject matter expert, which is Dr. Laura Presley, who actually has a case pending in the Texas Supreme Court regarding digital voter fraud. So I will just tell you that some of the races were, the outcomes were so completely different from what the internal polling was showing. And also there was a big divergence from early votes versus election day. And so I will say this. It cannot all be, I'm not going to attribute all of it and all the close races to voter fraud. I'm not going to do that. But I do think that we have to do a better job holding elected officials accountable who have the authority to make sure that our voter registration rolls have only legal citizens voting, registered to vote and voting. I think that we have to hold them accountable, and we have some efforts in place to try to do that. I think perhaps with the Governor Abbott has appointed a new acting Secretary of State. What we really want to see done is Secretary of State's office actually make sure that their office is upholding the rule of law and enforcing the law. So, what else can I take away from the elections? Well, one thing I can tell you for sure is that some of the consultants are telling candidates and office holders that, conservative Republicans need to just keep their heads down, keep their mouths shut, don't make any waves. And I like to say that that's a great recipe to lose in 2020. If conservatives in Texas, if Republicans wanted to vote for Democrat light, they just go ahead and vote for Democrat. But people are Republican for a reason, and it is there is a very stark contrast, and it's getting the differences are getting more pronounced every day. If you look at what's happening in Washington, D.C., you have most Democrats are saying that everything that Republicans and President Trump are saying about the border crisis is manufactured. Texans know there is no manufactured border crisis. We live with it every day. You need to Brian, one of the things that people don't talk about enough is when the federal government doesn't enforce its borders, that means that the federal government allows non-citizens to commandeer the people's assets. And what that means is if we have people floating over the border that want to access social services, illegals accessing social services, public schools, the cost to the criminal justice system when some of them end up there, guess who pays the bill on all of that? The citizens do. So that means the federal government is, in essence, commandeering our assets to pay for people who are here illegally. So I think that the stark contrast between Republicans and Democrats is the way we look at American sovereignty, taxation, just the basic tenets of freedom, religious liberty. I think that if we stop talking about those things, then we do that to our own detriment, and I think we're asking for the people to, the base to not get out and vote in 2020, and we can't afford that. So, my takeaway from the midterms is, we the people need to keep pushing our elected officials or our Republican candidates to stand up for something, to stand up for our values. Otherwise, we're just sort of wasting our time.
Yeah, I know when you talk about this, especially with the border, I mean, being in Texas, it seems like just because it seems like it's not immediate, or even though we just had the caravan, that debacle that just happened, but it's not the fact that it's such an immediate crisis where it's so physically seen, because this has been going on for decades.
Yes, it absolutely has. I know it took us. We started working on a bill and, agitating even, if you will, for a ban on sanctuary cities in Texas back in the 82nd legislative session. That was back in, 2011. So, it's taken us all this time. It was just last session, in 2017, that we were able to get a ban on sanctuary cities passed. And so it takes forever. And one of the reasons that we find ourselves in the chaos that we find ourselves in today is that we, the people, have allowed elected officials to treat the rule of law and their oaths of office as if it's some political menu that they can just pick and choose off of, depending on, what political correctness requires, what our donors do and don't want us to do, what the media does and doesn't say about a thing, our acceptance, by the political chattering class, instead of saying, no, the rule of law is the rule of law and we should enforce the rule of law all the time, no matter who it applies. And it applies to everyone the same way. So, elected officials sometimes pick and choose which laws they want to enforce. And so then you get to the point where, you have the cartels have operational control of our southern border. They have for a very long time. And the cartels are not just at the southern border with Mexico. There was an article that came out, I don't know, just a few years ago, and in fact you can still get the information from the annual report that comes out from the Department of Public Safety, Texas DPS, that talks about that, major cartels have operational command centers that they set up, that they operate in and out of, and Dallas-Fort Worth is one of the main command and control centers of some of the largest cartels in the world. So and most people who understand geography knows that Dallas-Fort Worth is not on the southern border. So, and we have the same thing in Smith County where I'm from. We have I-20 that comes through Smith County. We have human trafficking here, and that is, labor trafficking and sex trafficking. We have, drugs that are coming in through here. We have the opioids, the, fentanyl. We have all manner of drugs that come through Smith County, and our jails are full of people who have cartels, that trade ties. So it's, we pay way more for government services than we need to. If I believe, if we had actual operational command of our border, southern border, I think that taxpayers would be paying less of their money for the criminal justice system and in many, many other areas, because we all know that illegals get social services, and they just do. So any elected official that says they don't is just being disingenuous or just flat out lying.
Yeah. So, given that the session has just started, I guess what are you more optimistic or maybe pessimistic as far as maybe getting things done in this session coming up?
Well, I am trying very hard to be optimistic and give everybody a chance. And so I think what I'll do right now for just a second is I will touch on the new Speaker of the House. Speaker Dennis Bonnen should be given an opportunity to develop his own way of managing and governing the Texas House of Representatives. Dennis has his own record based on, and I like to say this: look, if you don't want to follow the scorecard or the scoring, the conservative ratings put out by any organization in Texas, if you just look at Professor Mark Jones' liberal conservative rating that he does on every issue that the House votes on, and does it on every single House member, and you look at the Dennis Bonnen's rating on the liberal conservative continuum there, you will see that he is rated as, he's in the top 25 of the most conservative Republican House members in the Texas House. So he is more conservative by far than a lot of the very, very liberal Republicans. So first of all, I think he being in the top 25, I think that I think that bodes well for a lot of issues as long as they're based on conservative principles. And I always say that once you divorce yourself of principles and you start figuring out what government's supposed to do, before you know it, you're into political expediency and you're trying to cover somebody's political backside rather than doing the right thing for freedom and liberty and giving opportunities to everybody to have a part of the Texas dream. So he has a different temperament than Joe Strauss did. I also know that Mr. Bonin is he's a numbers guy. He is very much a detail-oriented individual. And so based on a meeting that I had with him with some other leaders from our area, I believe that he's going to be looking at whether or not a solution let's just take property tax reform. Based on what he said, I believe that he's going to be looking for something that is fair and does right by people across Texas. In other words, he's going to want to make sure that we don't have unintended consequences, and we help taxpayers out in some parts of the state, for example, maybe in the metro areas, and then people in the more rural areas don't get the kind of breaks. So I think he's really looking for something across the board that's going to be helpful in permanently doing away with maintenance and operations on the property tax side. He has, he's mentioned some solutions that he's interested in, that he's looking at. So I think he's trying to take a deep look at all of that. Now, he said he's going to be fair. He said that, his job is to not put his thumb on the scale. His job is to make sure that, that the big issues are dealt with in committees, and that he's going to be fair in making sure that conservative legislation, by the way, in the Republican Party platform, based on those platform priorities, that he's going to be willing to let those, move through out of committee. Well, we'll wait and see, because as we know, the Texas House, since Republicans have been in charge, has had the majority, that we've had a problem with liberal Republicans deciding way before session ever starts what will and won't get through the Texas House. It used to be said that the best place where conservative government reforms go to die was the Texas Senate, and then it reversed into being, after Joe Strauss took over, it was said, that was said of the Texas House. So I told Speaker Bonin that Grassroots America, and I personally, as the executive director for Grassroots America, I am happy to work with him on issues that we can agree on. And so, but at the end of the day, Brian, everybody's going to have a record. So people will be, and frankly, what we look for because anybody can file a bill. I mean, they can all file bills. And sometimes they file bills that I call show bills, that they had no intention of fighting for to try to get them out of committee. So we're going to be looking to see what people fought for. And, when they're running for office and they ask for our support, I tell them, I will be looking to see what you fought for. And if you just sat on the sidelines and you didn't fight for anything, when you come and ask me again if I'll support you, the answer will be no.
Well, I mean, that's all we really should look for as far as when it comes to a speaker, is to be fair, at least.
Right.
Yeah. So I know a lot of times, just because, if someone is a conservative that is in the speaker role, and all of a sudden they tend to think like, oh, well, now they're just going to, be on the conservative side. But no, actually, being a speaker, they need to be fair to both sides. But that's the thing about it. It hasn't been fair all this time.
Right.
So just looking forward to have a fair shot for the people who are writing bills, and for their whatever their bill is on, for it to get voted on, and everything to go through smoothly and fairly.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with an up or down vote. I mean, that's what people were elected to go there. It doesn't matter on the liberal, progressive, conservative spectrum there. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. I mean, you were elected by people to go and do a particular job. And so, you know, what we look for is, I'm not afraid of an up or down vote. I mean, that's what I think, vigorous debate. There's nothing wrong with vigorous debate over the big issues of the day, whether they be social issues or whether they be fiscal issues. And they all get down to liberty issues. Sooner or later, it all comes down to which is going to grow. What's going to advance with this bill? Is this bill going to advance government, or is it going to advance individual liberty and opportunity for all? So I'm happy for us to have vigorous debates, and I think we should have more of them, and then people vote on them. I do say this, though, Brian. I do think that we need to be more focused on solving problems based on principle and trying to find areas of agreement more than focusing on the things that we don't agree on.
But you know, and I know the one reason that they don't really like to have up and down votes, because that's on the so they don't want those votes. So they do everything they can to keep it from having to actually make a decision, so the people can actually have a record to look at and say, oh, you voted up and down on this and that, or just voted president or whatever.
Yeah, I know that. You know, I heard somebody, and in fact, you know, there was so much that's been written about the speaker and this and that and the other, and so I saw where the somebody in the media had actually written that the main job of a House Speaker is to make sure that people in his or her party don't have to take difficult votes. Really? Really? So I just find that sometimes the opinions and the job descriptions that the media and political pundits and what I call the ruling class like to say are the job descriptions of our elected officials, and what we, the regular, ordinary citizens, think their jobs are often very, very different, and which makes life difficult, politically speaking. But, you know, they all know what they sign up for when they run for office. And so if they don't have a stomach for a vigorous debate and battles, then they need to find something else to do. Absolutely.
And so, well, I guess, what advice would you give people? Obviously, other than joining Grassroots America, but I'm just talking about just people in general who want to get involved and just, you know, just want to do something. What would be your advice?
Well, I always, in fact, I've actually been speaking on some topics that principle-driven, principle-focused topics to try to get people back to having reasonable conversations with people. And so I'll just hit just a few of them. First of all, I tell people, don't get in the habit of being a cut and paste activist. That means you should require sources of people. When you read an article online, and I don't care who it's from, it can be an article that was written by me. If you see an article that's been written and it doesn't have any sourcing in it, well, then you can pretty much say, well, that's a nice opinion, but how do I know that that opinion was even derived from a set of facts? And so I tell people, don't be a lazy activist and just cut and paste from people and go, oh, yeah, that makes sense to me. Let me just cut and paste it, or let me just forward it, or let me just copy it, let me like it, let me share it. And so I tell people, be careful what you share. Try to make sure that you are liking and sharing and putting out information that's actually factual. Because I think intelligent people can read a set of facts and look at sources, and they can come up with their own opinion as to what that set of facts means. So, because I think sometimes we get really careless about forwarding things that may not be true. So we want to be careful of that. That can have, if you are sharing things about an elected official that are not true, guess what's going to happen whenever you go to them and ask them to support a bill that you support, etc. They may not.
Yeah.
So I think particularly if it's an official who represents you, and you see something that is written about that elected official. I don't care if it's being written by a conservative, a liberal, I don't care who. If you're concerned about what they're saying about your elected official, you need to go to that official and you need to go to the record where they voted. You need to read the actual bill, piece of legislation, policy they were voting on, and you need to determine for yourself if that analysis of what they did or didn't do is accurate, okay? And that gets into something that I just frankly call the golden rule. If you would not like for somebody to put out misinformation about you, then don't do it to your elected officials. Because here's what's going to happen, Brian. If we aren't careful, I mean, because people, conservative activists in Texas are always talking about, we don't have enough good people to run for office. We don't have enough good people to run for office. Well, if we take the good people that we have in office and we disrespect them by listening to what other people say without verifying that information ourselves, and we just attack them, it gets to the point where good elected officials, they'll be in a situation where there are diminishing returns for serving. They get beaten up no matter what they do. And so before you know it, they decide, well, you know what, I don't think I'll run again. So I think we need to employ the golden rule. I think we need to be careful not to bear false witness. And I think we need to be sure that we don't fear discussions with people who don't agree with us. I think that iron sharpens iron, and I think that we learn and we grow whenever we have conversations with people that don't necessarily agree with us on every issue. I also think that as conservatives, we need to always point back to the first principles of liberty. And so as I tell people, if you're just now getting into the political arena and you don't quite know what to do, pick a topic that you're very passionate about. I tell people, if you're passionate about gun rights, your Second Amendment rights to protect your life, liberty, and property, get involved with that. I tell people, if you're somebody that's a number cruncher and you really care about spending and you care about what government spends money on, get involved in that and become as educated as you can in that topic. And then there are a myriad of ways to get involved. There are groups all over the state of Texas, and we have some of the best citizen activists that I think anybody could be blessed to be around. There are a lot of people who are very, very smart leaders. And in fact, Brian, I think you're aware that Grassroots America, our premier project that we're working on, is building a statewide Texas Conservative Grassroots Coalition. And that is a coalition of leaders, whether they're state Republican Executive Committee members, conservative Republican county chairs and precinct chairs, Tea Party leaders, and conservative independents. What we're doing is we're trying to build a network of people who understand that we need to be focused on first principles of liberty and how they apply to our everyday lives and to legislation and the government wants to enact on us. And past that, we need to figure out what are the issues that we agree on. And let's focus on getting things achieved that we agree on, and don't focus so much on what we don't agree on. For example, if you tell people, look, let's take the top 3 issues from the Republican Party platform and let's try to get legislation that solves these 3 problems, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if we focus on those things instead of saying, well, so-and-so, he didn't agree with me on that bill back in 2007, so I'm not even going to go talk to him. What? Liberals don't act like that. Liberals don't think like that, and that is why they're on the march.
Yeah, I hear that I hear that all the time, something like that. Yeah. Well, other than the project you just mentioned, anything else coming up with the Grassroots America?
Well, people can just go on our website where we have, in fact, we're going to be interviewing, we've booked Congressman Louis Gohmert. I believe it's going to be April the 23rd. And so we always have things. We're booking good meetings and good people to come out to do two things, to talk to us about the current issues of the day. And we're also going to do more leadership training and more basic activist training this year. Because we're getting more and more people who are wanting to get active for the first time. And another thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be working with the Trump team to build the Texas grassroots for Trump for 2020. And so we're working on all those issues, and we're already in contact with the Trump team. They've reached out to us, and we're going to be working on those issues. What we're going to do is we're going to pray for the best for the legislative session, and we're going to work really hard to make sure that we keep Texas government inside a state constitution-sized box. And we're going to pray that President Trump holds fast and we get our border secure.
Well, JoAnn, you're doing great work. You've been doing great work. I know we've been in different places together and all over. And I just appreciate what you're doing. And thank you for your time. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you again soon.
That's great, Brian. It's been a blessing talking to you, and I appreciate seeing you every time that I do. If I can ever help you out, let me know.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, what's up? This is Kai Jones, and you're listening to me here at Trend Chat.
All right. And thanks to JoAnn Fleming to join us on Trend Chat. And it's funny, one thing she mentioned about as far as, because that interview was recorded last week, and so this was before the whole Covington Catholic kids thing. So it's it was funny, as far as not wanting to share things without actually getting the facts. It was funny just hearing that. But we only got a couple minutes to go, and really I don't need that much time for this, because I was thinking about how I was going to talk about this whole New York abortion thing, which is just reprehensible as far as what is going on, where they have signed a bill where you have basically have taken away all the rights of the unborn now. And it's truly sickening to hear that audio or see the video of those of the people in New York cheering that this bill was passed. And I mean, to think about how many thousands of lives that are going to be, 1,000 more lives that are going to die because of this law, and to hear those people cheer about that is just truly sad. And it is really just disheartening to have for even to get this far. It's just, it's almost beyond words how callous people can be towards the babies, and how bloodthirsty they are to want to do away with children just basically out of convenience. Because how this law is written is basically, well, whatever factor you can come up with, you can basically kill your child, basically. So I'm actually glad I'm at the end right now, because I may not have words to it to talk about this, but it also kind of makes you sick and makes you a little angry, actually, about how people just want to to kill the unborn. Speaking of that, we're gonna have Nick Loeb of the Roe versus Wade movie coming up next week. So look forward to that. And so until next week, we'll chat with you later.